Europe, Middle East, Africa, India, living in Brussels.
You know, my James Bond man crush on you.
It was a second life and the full deal, full expat treatment. Company was great. So yeah, apartments, cars, people, translators, you name it. But what made that car a little bit better was his girlfriend for 5+ years was Deborah Harry, Blondie. If I shake your hand on a deal, it doesn't matter if I understand the language you're speaking or not. I'm going to carry through and honor my deal.
Can I get back on the plane? I left my phone. And too stereotypical. This is a 50-something, heavy-ish, but strong built woman, militant. And when I told her what happened, and can I get back on, she said, "Why did you do that?"
Jeff Stearns, connected through cars. If they're bigwigs, we'll have them on the show. And yes, we'll talk about cars and everything else. Here he is now, Jeff Stearns.
Jeff Stearns, connected through cars, and I'm here with my great friend, Larry Constantin, and I want to tell you a little bit about Larry before we get started. First of all, you might notice that our imperfections that are a little more clear, we changed recording software, and now we have a little bit higher resolution, so thanks for all the feedback from everyone on that. So I'll let Larry tell the story of where I disappeared to during was that our first car deal, Larry?
Yeah, absolutely. Almost our last, but yeah, working with your sales team, trying to make a deal on, I think, my first BMW, and like always, needed a sales manager to get involved in the negotiation, and they were running paper and pen back and burning through ink. And salesperson came over very politely and said, "Larry, would you mind coming back maybe tomorrow?" Our sales manager had to step out. I said, "I'm in the middle of a negotiation here. You're going to throw me off my game." I said, "Who's your sales manager?" He said, "Jeff Stearns." I said, "Okay, I don't know him. Where'd he step out to?" She goes, "Hold on, I'll be right back." So she comes back and she says, "I don't know if I should tell you this or not, but he went trick-or-treating." I said, "Trick-or-treating?" I said, "How do I even answer that? Either he's an adolescent or he's got a great family that he cares about." And the answer was, you have an amazing family and you always put them first. And I thought to myself, you know what? This is a good guy. I got to meet him and I'll come back. So a couple hours later, you called me, if you remember, and you said, "Hey, I'm back from trick-or-treating. Let's get that car deal wrapped up." And I think the history speaks for itself, but I appreciated you very much for who you were as the father and the husband and the parent. And I thought, you know what? This is a good guy to do business with. So.
Well, thanks for the compliment. So for the civilian not in the car business, we live pretty much, well, I was going to say 12, but it's really 11 last day of the month. And then the last week of the year is really the Super Bowl. So getting out at 10, 11, 12, 1 a.m. on the last day of the month is not uncommon. Certainly wasn't for me. And then the last week of the year, Christmas to New Year's, or a couple days after New Year's, depending on where the weekend falls, where the manufacturer finishes out the year. I'd never gotten home, Larry, I'd never gotten home in my life before 11 o'clock at night the last week of the year ever. So leaving the last day of the month was very, very unorthodox. And of course, Halloween is the last day of the month. So, but my kids knew once the trick-or-treating was done and we ate a few together, I was going to be heading back because there'd be a few hours to go. But I want to tell you a little more about Larry. Very, very interesting guy, and you're going to find. Larry's what I call very rare, a both sides of the brain. I think you use both sides of your brain. And I don't know if you're like the movie where the guy takes the little clear pill and then he gets like times a million, or, you can use your whole brain. I can't. But you're very engineer-ish and you're very sales-ish. So let me put it another way to insult all the engineers out there. Just because you could think engineer-ish doesn't mean that you're really boring. So, I mean, you can really talk to anybody. So I want to talk a little bit about Larry and give a little history. So just having Larry there on the screen may have me do all the talking. He may not have to say anything. I'll just tell the whole thing about Larry. But Larry bought a number of cars from us. Larry was always very likable, polite, great stories, personable, well-traveled, can tell stories, relate to anyone about anything. Yet when it came down to numbers negotiation, he became very easy to not like. Let's put it that way. As much as it was unorthodox for me to leave in the middle of a deal, which is unheard of, last day of the month, but it was Halloween.
Well, that cost you the holdback, didn't it?
Larry would walk out over $1.80 payment difference on a lease, no problem, and let you stew on it and let you punish, think about your your consequence because you didn't make his deal. But a beautiful thing about Larry is he would come in to visit socially, like a lot of our customers used to do. So I was proud of the social aspect. But Larry would drop in on a Saturday. I think you'd just be bopping around in maybe your M3 or maybe your Harley Davidson, just enjoying the weather, enjoying the drive. And then one of the salespeople would be having a struggle with a customer, and Larry would be visiting me at my desk, the desk that the salespeople are bringing their offers into. So he's hanging around, hearing the salespeople come in, explain their situation. I need a lease. I need a loan. I need an appraisal. The customer wants to leave because of this. They're not happy with, whatever's going on, whatever story's being told. And Larry, without invitation, dare I say without permission, more than once, had gone in to talk to the customer for the salesperson and got the canoe unstuck sideways in the river and going downstream again for salespeople more than one time, which is really amazing who you can speak to, which is anybody. Now, when I talk about this engineer, and hopefully we'll get into it on today's show if we don't run out of time before it's your time to talk. But when I met you, you were in the window film manufacturing and I think inventing the certain type of film. Am I right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay. And you can explain if you think it's interesting, but I found it fascinating when Larry explained how you've heard of titanium film. I always thought titanium film, like you buy, you get your American Express card, right? The green, the gold, the black, the onyx, the titanium, whatever. I just thought that was like the higher level film or stronger. But apparently there are varying metals that you can explode in a room, and then if I recall, there's magnets that make all the particles face the same way, and then there's this melting molten plastic that they fall into that eventually dries and turn into a film to have different UV or, I'm sorry, yeah, so that's ultraviolet, but there's other lights that you block too, right? What are they? Infrared?
Right. Yeah, you block infrared, you'll block ultraviolet light, and then, of course, you'll control visible light. In the simple term, tinting is the visible portion. But yeah, it's a very mature business at this stage. It's been around about 40 years, and window film was a simple word for what I was doing for a long time, but it ultimately grew into a very precise and scientific-based business. And you're right, Jeff, titanium was one of the metals used by my former company, and they actually pioneered putting complex metals, high-performing metals into plastics, if you will. And that was done in a metallizing chamber. It's a zero vacuum. Imagine creating fission and plasma in a giant chamber. And you use rotatable cathodes, and you take atomic levels of each metal and bombard it with gas, create explosions like a piston in a car, and it attaches to the film. Well, what you want to do with that film is cut the heat from the sun, control some light so that you can see more comfortably when you're driving or you're in your home, but not make it opaque. And that's really the magic behind it. It's how you deposit the chemistry and how you get it to coat onto the film. And that's a pretty substantial business these days.
Like I said about using both sides of his brain, kind of a boring topic, but Larry actually brought it to life. So one more little story, and I promise we're going to get Larry involved with today's visit. When I left the car business, I joined Car Chat 24. And Larry did what he usually did when he came into the dealership for service. He called me and said, "Hey, a-hole, I'm in your service department." come visit, or where are you? And I let him know that I just left the BMW store where I'd spent about 8 years. And he says, where are you? And I said, well, I'm selling chat and support and software now. And he says, will it translate? You remember this?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Larry says, will it translate to other languages? I said, I'm sure. And I'm VP of sales, but at the time I'm working from home. I'm VP of sales over no one. And of course, I'm very excited to do anything to expand the company. So we went to lunch. And at the time, I believe you'd sold your window film business to a company that hired you, and you were over Europe and Middle East?
Yeah, Europe, Middle East, Africa, India, living in Brussels.
Okay. So, not a very well-traveled guy. And did you have, and maybe I created this about you, my James Bond man crush on you. Didn't you have an apartment and a car in a couple of these places?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a second life, and the full deal, full expat treatment. Company was great. So yeah, apartments, cars, people, translators, you name it.
So Larry says, okay, well, the Middle East, your software may have difficulty there. Eastern Europe. He says, what time of year could you travel? And I says, I don't know. Let's say end of July. So he says, if you're going to go end of July, I think where you should go is somewhere in South Ukraine where the Russians are on the Black Sea. And we'll get you introduced. Now, I go, well, it'll be a story for another day. It was Fashion Week in Ukraine, and it sounded like horse hooves going up and down the street, but it was high heels. And Larry says, how's it going there so far? And of course, with an exotic car background, I'd certainly run many auto shows with exotic cars, hired models, and can spot models. And, not that I was so into interacting with them, but just like being able to spot a line of work. And I said, well, there's a lot of models in town. I think there's a car show here, or an exotic car show. And he said, well, welcome to Ukraine, and it's Fashion Week and whatever. All right. So fast forward, I got a translator, and now to talk about getting into car dealerships, I have to deal with the guy that could potentially get me introduced. Do you remember this?
I do. Yeah, I do.
So the translator, Boris, says, listen, when these guys are going to come to your hotel tonight, you'll meet them in the lobby. What do you drink? You need to drink with them. What do you drink? And I said, I don't drink. And he says, okay, then maybe just have 5 or 6 shots with these guys.
That's true.
So I said, I really don't drink. And he figured it out, and he got everybody one of the flask size bottles of vodka, I believe. Put water in mine, and then everybody got a can of Coke or whatever they drank next to it. And he introduces me around, and everybody's drinking, and we're in the lobby, and I think it's like 1 a.m. And, we're toasting the Titanic, and we're toasting Khrushchev, and, all that stuff. And finally, I tell a guy to on a joke, blank yourself, and next thing you know, it's like, blank my mother, blank my sister, and he's standing up like a drunk jock at a party. Now, he's a little guy, but I felt like he could take me apart. And I'm thinking, and as he's standing up, the only thing that's going through my mind is the calculations of how close I should be to him or away from him to allow whatever punch is going to. Now, he's in Russian, swearing and yelling. The translator's trying to talk him down. Now, I've been telling jokes all night, and the translator's been translating them, and they've been laughing. We've been hugging, kissing, toasting. So finally, while I could see he's uncoiling a little bit with the translator, I can tell that he's relaxing. I decide to go closer, because how hard can he hit me closer? And I move a little closer, give him a hug, give him a kiss on the cheek, and then he's like, crazy Americano, and we went back to toasting everyone, but I was wondering, does my health insurance work here? And will I have a wallet when this is all over? So what's interesting about Larry is he was an entrepreneur, and then he went corporate, and then he went back to entrepreneur. So do you feel like participating in tonight's conversation? Jump in.
Sure. Yeah. Happy to take the time. No, you know what, Jeff, I appreciate it. And I like what you're doing here. So thanks for the opportunity. I'm not a big time entrepreneur or a big time corporate guy. I've had the opportunity to have some great experiences, but really, I think it started, at a young age. I was always watching my father, who was an entrepreneur for a long time. My grandfather was an entrepreneur and inventor, immigrated from Italy and self-made man. At one point, 700 employees in the botany section of New Jersey. If you were Italian, he gave you a job. And he invented the hermetic seal for the quartz crystal, and always taught me as a kid, treat your employees and your customers well, and the money adds up. So I always remembered that, but I always wanted to work, and lemonade stands just weren't going to cut it because, unfortunately, at a young age, I had a passion for cars. And you rewind in time, my father and grandfather always had nice cars. Avantis, Studebakers, Corvettes. And my dad's first car, when he was 15, was a 1961 Corvette, Honduras maroon with white inserts, real knockoffs. And in high school, he would drive that car around. But what made that car a little bit better was his girlfriend for 5+ years was Deborah Harry, Blondie. So all the pictures with this Corvette came with Blondie, this very attractive blonde lady who at the time was an artist. She wasn't a singer. She was actually a painter.
She wasn't Blondie yet.
She wasn't Blondie. She was Deborah Harry. But I thought, geez, you get a nice Corvette, you get a nice blonde girlfriend. That sounds pretty great to me. But I learned about cars and I loved them. So I knew I better get to work. There's no free lunch in life. And at 12, I had an older friend. I'm 12 years old. It's summer in New Hampshire. I have an older friend. He says, hey, I just got a job at a furniture store. I deliver furniture all over New England, and I can get you in, but you have to be 16. And I said, great, I'm 16. And he goes, perfect. The owners are on vacation, so they won't ask you to give paperwork, but you can start now. And for about a week, 10 days maybe, we delivered furniture all over New England. It was the best thing ever. I knew I was making money. I was going to save for a car at some point. And the owners came back and they said, hey, just want to talk to you for a minute. I said, sure. They said, you're fired. And I said, why am I fired? They said, you do a great job. Don't get us wrong. We love the work you did for the last 10 days, but you're 12 and you actually need to be 16 to work here. So that was my first job, and I got fired from it in less than a week. I didn't even get a paycheck. They had to mail me the money. And I thought, okay, I guess I need to wait. But, the itch was there, and I thought, I don't want any handouts, and, I'll mow some lawns and, shovel some driveways. But ultimately, I need to do something a little bit more exciting. So. And then, I got into this window film business by accident. It was girlfriend in West Virginia. Ironically, she had a beautiful IROC Z Camaro, and she came home one day with tinted windows. And I said, how did you do that? Where did you go? She goes, oh, I did it myself. I said, well, you need to show me how to do that. So she did. And the next thing, in West Virginia, in high school, I was known as the guy that could make your car look better. So that gave me some walking money as well. But I knew for me, it was all about the car, right? I needed a car to look good. I wanted to feel good in the car. I just liked them. So, that's where I got my first experience in this film business. And of course, as you mentioned earlier, it grew into a career from being an entrepreneur, having retail sites, basically tuning and accessorizing your vehicles. It also has a architectural element. So don't get me wrong, about half of our lives are spent in our homes and buildings. That was a big part of my business. And then eventually wound up working for the manufacturer, and I'll explain what I did for them. But, in high school and college, it was really, how do I get a car? How do I make enough money to buy a car? how do I pay the insurance? Because my parents treated me well, but it wasn't a free lunch either. At 17, I bought a limousine because I thought, well, I can start a limo business on the weekends and make money, and that'll get me a new car. And I remember buying the limousine. It turned out it was a gang from Connecticut, the Latin Kings, pretty notorious at the time. They sold me the car. It was an auto trader deal. They delivered the car to Portland, Maine in a blizzard, and I had a friend with me because I was a little suspect that these guys weren't always the most upfront guys. I said, "Would you like a bank check?" They said, "No, we want cash." I'm like, "Okay." So I got the cash. They showed up, and they wanted more money than what they advertised. And it turns out that I had the cheesiest leather jacket that Wilson's Leathers has ever made. And if you recall Wilson's Leathers, they made one jacket that had probably every color under the rainbow, green, red, yellow. But the back of the jacket looked like the Mercedes logo. It was not. It was just where the leather seams went together. And these guys wanted $9,500 in cash, and they weren't happy with that. And they were all packing. One of them had a Mercedes. And I said, "I don't have any more money. This is all I've got. But I'll give you this custom-made Mercedes jacket if you call it good." And I remember holding up the jacket, and he looked at the logo, and he goes, "Yeah, man, we good." And I walked away with a limousine. So fast forward, I couldn't get a license to be a limo driver, didn't really have the time. So it was actually a very poorly laid out plan. But I did drive the limo to high school, and that was a big hit. So flipped it, sold it, did something else. But yeah, I was always trying to find a way to earn even while I was in school. And, always didn't mind putting the work in. Ultimately wound up opening pizza places, getting a taste in the hospitality business, and that was great training. You're working really hard, customer by customer, kind of like the car business. You have to earn your customers; they need to come back. You need to make money over and over, and I think that taught me a discipline of both the financial side, but also customer intimacy, how you treat people, and what it means when they come back. So I got out of that business, went to college in Maine, and then focused a little bit more on this window film business. Grew I would say, New England-based business into something, pretty decent. It was providing a great living. We were doing great things for people, making them safer, more comfortable, and enjoying their drives in their vehicles and so on. And then I was asked by one of the companies making the film if I'd consider joining them. And I remember I had just bought a house in Maine. Life was good. And I thought, I don't want to work for anybody. Why would I do that? That's crazy. But I was alone. When you're an entrepreneur or you're a small business owner, that's maybe the best term, you're by yourself unless you have partners. So I thought I could always go back to my small entrepreneurial life, but maybe I should try being part of something bigger. So I joined 2001. Changed my life, moved from New England down to Clearwater, Florida. And, I was hired as a sales manager and showed quite a bit of promise, I think. I was energetic. I liked the business. I worked very hard. I worked long hours, of course, and wound up taking on a global role as a product manager, and then wound up traveling quite a bit and seeing the different cultures, in 70 plus countries. And part of the left brain, right brain, and I appreciate the compliment, is probably the fact that I've been able to work with so many different people from around the world that are a lot smarter than I am, that have kind of taught you that it's not always ready, shoot, aim. It's measure, cut, or aim, and then shoot. And there is I think, a balance between what an American style might be, which is let's go get them and let's win, and maybe a European style, which is a little bit more reserved and, let's analyze, let's crunch numbers, let's maybe try. The Americans are like, no, we're going forward. The Europeans might say, no, it's too risky. So I was able to kind of adopt the best from both sides. And I would say that's probably what I appreciate the most about my opportunity is I can argue with myself very well. So at any rate, wound up climbing the ladder, if you will. The company was very good to me, provided several opportunities. And I remember them pressuring me. They said, hey, you need to move to California. You're in Clearwater, our big operations in California. If you're going to be the global guy, you're going to be in California. And there was no way in hell I was moving to California at that time. 2004, 2005, market pricing was outrageous. I remember the mortgage broker said, hey, we'll get you a first mortgage, a second mortgage, we'll get you a third if you need it, whatever you want. And you can pay $1 million for a house that's worth 200 grand, but we know you're never going to be home because you travel all the time. So when do you want to move here? I said, I'm not doing it. Essentially. And the company said, you're not coming. I said, no, that doesn't make sense. I'm not coming. So then they said, well, would you move to Europe? We have a problem in Europe and we would like to consider you to run that business. I said, yeah, I'll go to Europe. And I remember my boss at the time, he goes, wait a minute, you won't come to sunny California, but you're going to move to rainy Belgium? Why would you do that? I said, opportunity is better. I have, there's things to be fixed there. I think I can help with that, and I want to fix something. So let me add it. So I wound up moving over there. But it was 2000, end of 2005, packed up, basically had a very big holding company that owned our business unit. They were Belgian based, so Belgium was their home turf. They treated you like gold anyway, and it was a full expat package. And I remember showing up in Belgium by myself, and I was told my company car would be in this parking spot, and I'd get the keys to my apartment. And I had ordered all this furniture from IKEA because that was the thing to do over there. So I arrive, it's cold, it's rainy, it's about 33, 34 degrees Fahrenheit, so just enough not to be snow, but very cold. I get to my apartment at 11 at night. Barely found the right key to work, but I got in. And I'm so excited because I knew that I paid the guy to bring my furniture from IKEA and assemble it and have it all together. And all I wanted to do was sit down, take a shower, use the internet. My IKEA furniture was still on the pallet. I don't know how they got the pallet in the apartment. It was shrunk wrap, strapped down. It looked like it was getting shipped, air cargo, completely untouched. So I call my realtor. She picks up midnight. I said, Ariel, my furniture is like not assembled. She goes, oh, I'm so sorry about that. He can come out in 2 weeks. I'm like, wait a minute, I have no bed, no furniture, no clothes, no nothing. So I managed to find a fork and a knife inside the IKEA, and I started screwing things together, and I wound up getting half a bed together about 3 a.m. And that was my first welcoming gift to Europe when I moved there. But
now, Larry, you were single. You were single when you made it. Okay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah, and it worked out timing wise, and I was single, and had nothing keeping me to Florida or Maine, so I took the opportunity, and it was a lot of hard work. The business needed a lot of fixing. We had offices all over the region, partners and distributors all over the world, including in Russia and Turkey and Cyprus and Africa and South Africa, Greece, you name it. And I had a pretty large team. So I kind of expected, a lot of oversight. But this company at the time, Beckart, our former parent company, was great. They just basically said, here's the keys and call us if you need us. Good luck. And we ran hard, and we fixed a lot of things, and I rebuilt the team and had some great people already there. We added some new great people, and it was, no shortage of workload, Jeff. I mean, it was 20 hours a day and, 4 to 5 countries a week minimum. And there was always something to put out. And again, it was films and plastics and coatings. And the thing that, resonated with me, and I take it, I wake up with it every morning, is that no matter where you're doing business, no matter what country you're in, these customers all want the same thing. They want to trust you. They want you to deliver your product or service on time. They want to know if they have a problem that you'll help them. And I think I brought a lot of that to the table in some of the new countries that we had done business in or started to do business in that we never touched before. And that's always kind of been my MO, that if I shake your hand on a deal, it doesn't matter if I understand the language you're speaking or not. I'm going to carry through and honor my deal. If you're Ukrainian, Russians, Saudi, German, Italian, we're going to get along and we're going to make business together, and I'm going to help you make money. So I think they knew that of me. And when I would go in with my teams, or sometimes I just go alone and blaze a new country that we've never talked to, and I always felt proud that I'm going to deliver what I say, and vice versa, and hold these guys accountable. So anyway, enough of that. Yeah.
Well, Larry, I love that you bring that up. Some of the feedback I've gotten on these episodes, because the show's connected through cars. And some people have said, well, I wasn't going to watch because I think it's about cars and I'm not really into cars. And it's the people that I've met through the car business. Obviously, that's how we met. And some of the feedback I've gotten from the people that don't consider themselves car people, but took a look maybe because they knew me or knew a friend that recommended it, contacted me and said, what I find interesting is, sure, there's some car stuff on there, but the people with their stories and the life lessons. So, and we, of course, can talk about cars. But when you said, what I'm proud of is I want to deliver what I say I'm going to deliver, there's a thing I love about that, and there's a thing that I don't love about that. That's always been very important to me. That's how my dad brought me up. It's always made me nuts when people said, people want to renege on an agreement. Well, I mean, did you get the signature in the right spot? I mean, is there a technical way I can get out of this deal, or did we shake on it? Whatever. I mean, to me, even if you wish you didn't make the deal, even if something changed, even if you could find a higher offer through somebody else, or it's inconvenient, I believe in asking someone if I can get out of a deal if it's not good for me, and I feel that strongly about it. But it's up only if they'll let me out of it. Can I get out of it? Because I'm not going to break my word, right? So I love that you said that, but here's what bothers me. What bothers me is coming in with that kind of an attitude, and I've come into a few businesses, and I don't want to say turnaround, but certainly impacted their growth, whatever. It's pretty much, I mean, if you boil it down to the serving spirit and keeping your word, it's really all it's been. I mean, there's many, 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 many moving parts, but it really boils down to urgency and integrity, really, right? And understanding the other person's side. The thing I don't like is, why is it such a game changer when you come in with something like that? Why is the world not?
I think it's simple. I think there's two types of customers that are eager to do business with you, and customers that are scared. And the people that are scared to do business are scared for a reason. They've been burned before.
They're traumatized from the past.
They're traumatized. I mean, I've had many friends tell me, hey, we know you like cars. We know that you get along with your car dealers. That's strange in itself, they tell me. But they also tell me, hey, would you help me? Would you come with me if I go to buy a car, because we know that you're comfortable with it? And I said, well, the reason I'm comfortable with it is I don't do business with anybody I don't like. And I think I try to put my customer hat on. And I'm not a brainchild of customer experience, but I think, what taught me the most was 70 plus countries over and over again, and dealing with some very tough people, in some cases brutally tough. And I'll tell you the Russian story in a minute. They ultimately accepted the same thing I was offering everyone else. I'll be here on time. You'll get what I promise. You won't get burned with me. And I was part of a large company. It wasn't my company. I didn't control everything, but I controlled enough where I could meet those promises. And if we weren't supplying on time, or there was an issue, I'd be damned if I let a failure happen on my watch. And I think that was something that was new, because a lot of people, not necessarily in my former company, but a lot of people take customers for granted, especially in distribution. I was doing a lot of distribution to these foreign countries. So once you go through the effort of earning the customer, sometimes it's easy to become a number. The customer is buying month after month, millions of dollars add up, and all of a sudden people get complacent and they say, well, how much am I getting from this country? How much am I getting from this country? That'll be there next year. And my methodology was pretty simple, probably not new, was no, we start at zero next year. Always zero. We have to earn every dollar from there on up. We don't have $100 million of business January 1, 2022. We have $0. And we will earn the 100 or more, et cetera. And I think that made a difference. And, I will tell you that, Russia was one of the best countries I did business with, but also a tough one as well. And when I inherited that region, Russia owed us a lot of money. And I remember dealing with the principal over there. He was a partner, distributing partner. I said, you owe us several $1 million. And he said, yes, I know. I said, okay. And it's all past due. He's like, yes, I know that too. It's okay. And he goes, let me just stop you right there. Not paying. Not going to pay you. I said, okay. Why aren't you going to pay me? He's like, before you got here, you broke your promise. You didn't give me what I wanted on time. You didn't give me the right product. I had issues. I lost a lot of money. So now I became his problem. So he lost money and now he's not going to pay me. So I developed a relationship with him. I said, well, I can't fix what happened yesterday, and you got to stop crying about yesterday. You got to help me help you. And if you're willing to do that, I can help you make more money. You won't worry about the few $1 million you owe me. You'll have a better business, but you got to give me a chance. So we established a relationship. I went there several times, and ultimately, to get the money, I needed to deal with his bankers. And at the time, and you know this from your travels, in the mid to late 2000s, bankers were being assassinated as often as people were getting lattes in America. I mean, it was not fashionable to be a banker in Moscow or in Russia.
I don't know that from my travels, Larry.
You don't? Okay. Thankfully. Well, in Russia, in Eastern Europe, if you're in banking at that time, you were a bullseye. And for various reasons, I won't speculate, but you were, either wanted by somebody or you were needing something from somebody. But a lot of these bankers were afraid to surface, to literally come above ground. So they called it the underground. And if you're dealing with a banker back then, and this banker was a partner, you were meeting with him with armed guards 3 to 4 levels below the city in these, offices, if you will, or underground city centers, if you will. And I remember going into a meeting because I said, look, I've got to get the money. You're $2 million past due. I need the cash. I can't, my company's not going to wait on this. He says, okay, I'll take you down there, Misha. He says, I'll take you down and you'll meet Igor. Igor's the banker. If Igor wants to pay you, it's okay. So I describe what I want. Igor is a little guy, actually, little guy, maybe 5'2", 5'3", well-dressed, perfectly dressed, surrounded by gigantic bodyguards with semi-automatic guns hanging from each side. And I'm no threat to them. I could speak a couple words of Russian. I knew a little bit about what they were saying. And they said, okay, please tell Igor what you want. I said, I need $2 million today. And I need you to wire that to my home country and my office. They all start laughing. They tell me I'm funny in Russian, that I've got, a big nerve, and I'm playing along. And I knew they weren't going to hurt me because I was with the guy that needed me. But he's like, okay, we'll give you $1 million today, and we'll give you the rest later if we like you. And I said, you know what? To myself, I thought, we've got nothing out of these guys. I'll take the $1 million. I said, okay, great. Here's the wiring instructions again. Please wire the money. They laugh again. He holds up a briefcase. He goes, no, it's here. And I said, and I'm thinking, I'm not going to get through customs with this. We're going to have to find another way. So without going into detail, long story short, there was There's a lot of money that got transported that day, some of it on carry-on, some of it in luggage, and ultimately we wound up paying some debt down and smooth sailing thereafter. But that was a lesson that, don't back down. Just make sure you're polite about it. These guys were businessmen. They understood the same thing that we all understand. You got to, have a good relationship with your vendors, and the vendor, is going to be there for the future. So that was an interesting lesson. And I became good friends with these people. I didn't tell you, but just last year, Misha called me and he said, I'm in New England and I think you own some restaurants in Maine. Where are they? I told him. He says, I'll be there in 4 hours. And he came over. And it was really nice to see them. But, that whole culture, a little bit about it is very hierarchical. It's really, you're Krisha, you're the roof, mafia. You have resources, you're on top, and everyone else kind of falls in line below. And just a side story with this same guy, we were going out to dinner, and he was I would say he was a nice Russian guy, probably connected, definitely connected. You could tell by what they drove. They drove a G-Wagon or a Range Rover. They were, at the top of the food chain. We came out of a restaurant and he accidentally hit a car in front of him. A little Honda, actually. And the bumper fell right off. And Misha, was reaching in his pocket to get cash because he felt bad. He was going to pay these guys. He's like, I'm going to just pay them. That's what you do. There's no insurance company. You just pay cash, right? And 4 guys get out of the car systematically, ready to fight. And they took one look at his car and they took one look at him. And they said, no, thank you. Have a nice day. He rolls the window. He says, no, it's okay, guys. I will pay for that. I'm so sorry. And they're like, I don't want any part of this. It's on us. They grabbed the bumper, put it in the trunk of the car, and drove off. And that was the Russian way. He just happened to be a nice guy. So, back then it was really about who you were and who you stayed away from and who you ran with. So interesting side note there.
So, I mean, to the listener, to the watcher, I mean, who knows? We don't know where you've been. I mean, this may be low key for you, but for a lot of the world that hasn't traveled like that, I mean, that sounds like such a movie that's normal for you. You're with the guy in the Range Rover, the G-Wagon, the people that are nervous about it. Now, I'm curious, did you ever collect the second million in accounts receivable?
About half of it. We always seem to have some sort of bad luck, which would hesitate his interest in paying all of it. We were current. I guess the good news is at one time we were completely current. He didn't owe us a penny, and business was great. And it was really a pleasure. But, you talk about the stereotypical way and it's unfair to my Russian friends or the country itself. First of all, the history is amazing. It's ultra rich in history. You know that. The people, what I liked about the Russians was they either liked you or they didn't. And that was a very good life lesson that if they shake your hand and say you have a deal, then I could take that deal to the bank. Sometimes my company would say, did you get a contract? And I'm like, I don't think you understand. No, we have a handshake, and that's better than the contract, but don't push your luck. But a funny story, and I should have opened with it. The first time I ever went to Russia, I was going to Siberia to do some business. And flying into Moscow domestically, that was on Delta Airlines. So that I felt pretty good about that. This is early 2000. And I was going on to Siberia. Well, then you transfer in Moscow to one of the 3 airports at the time, and you take another 4 to 5 hour night flight from Moscow into Novosibirsk, for instance. And my friends told me, they said, look, you won't get what you deserve. You'll get what you pay for. So I get ready to load the plane. It's the largest Russian troop carrier they had at the time. Now, bear in mind, the in-country planes were not as nice as what would travel over the Atlantic. These were Russian, Tupolovs or Aleutians. And this was an Aleutian, 2-aisle, 450 people, basically. And I remember going up through the belly of the plane on the tarmac, so no jetway. And I saw the radio on the tire coming through the rubber. The tires were shot. And this was a massive jumbo plane. And it was dirty.
Was this Aeroflot?
It was Aeroflot. Yes, it was. And back in the day, at that time, they didn't have the same fleet that they have now. They were actually a great airline now, but it was rough. And I remember sitting down and I turned the fan on. Well, the fan was in the back of the seat and it blew dust all over me from the seat in front of me. And I'm like, that's it. I'm not doing this. So I go up front. I grab the equivalent of $50 in rubles. I said to the flight attendant, I said, I would like first class, please. And I go to give her the money. She goes, it is impossible. You cannot have first class. I said, okay. I grab $200. I said, yes, first class. She goes, 2A. So I sit down in 2A, and I figured if this plane's going to go down, I'm going to go down in first class because I'm not sitting in coach. Absolutely not. 3 a.m. I'm tired. Everyone's tired. Lights are off. The cockpit opens. Pilot comes out. It's so stereotypical, it's almost unfair. He comes out. He sits right down next to me in 2B. It's the only open seat. Flight attendant comes over with the beverage cart. He does a couple vodka shots. And I remember he still had his stylus from his Palm Pilot. And he's working on his Palm Pilot, drinking his vodka. He closes his eyes for about an hour. Then the flight's ready to land. Goes right back in the cockpit and lands the plane. Minus 40 degrees, mind you. And I thought, did this really just happen, or is this a movie? And you just had to kind of immerse yourself in that culture, or any culture for that matter. No matter what country I would go to, I thought, let's not be the local tourist. Let's try to learn the people and respect them and learn what they have that we don't have, and just be a neutral visitor. So that was my first experience flying in Russia. So ever since then, I knew that if I was going to go in country, I was buying my way up to first class. It just made me feel safer for some reason.
Well, I agree with you about not being such a tourist. I mean, I did a little bit of traveling. And for example, eating. I mean, I love finding out, like, where do you eat? You know, forget where the tourists go. And I've been in some areas that I got a little nervous where I was being led. Like, am I about to lose my wallet? And then, of course, down into a basement stairway or something, and had some of the best food. Now, speaking of Russia and Eastern Europe, and I've been all over Europe, and I believe that Eastern Europe is my favorite. When you go, well, this is really Mediterranean. Outside of there, I like south of Sicily, Malta. I think I could live there. I think I could live in Eastern Europe. I'm not so much about the weather there, but I do love the food. And the thing I love about the Eastern Europeans is the storytelling. And I agree with you on the camaraderie part. I mean, like, if they hate you, there's no one going to torture themselves by being around you or pretending they like you. You're going to know they don't like you, and that's it. Or they'll tell you you're not funny.
That too.
And right? But if they do like you, or you like them, the friendships are, unbelievable. Now, speaking of flight, and this is also so stereotypical that it's unfair, but it's true. I had connected in Moscow for somewhere. I was in Moscow. I forget the name. The airport. And with an O, but I can't pronounce it.
Domodedovo. It was DME. Yeah, it was SVO, Sheremetyevo 1 and 2, and Domodedovo.
So, of course, long flight. And I get off the plane, and I'm halfway out of there, and I'm passing that round information desk after the gate. And I realize I forgot I left my phone on the plane.
Oh, wow.
And it's very frustrating to be somewhere like that without your phone. I'm not running to the local T-Mobile. So I asked the person at the round, because I could find English speaking there, at that round information thing.
I know it. I know which one you're talking about. Right next to the coffee shop. Yep.
I know you know. And I asked, can I get back on the plane? I left my phone. And too stereotypical. This is a 50-something, heavy-ish, but strong built woman, militant. And when I told her what happened and can I get back on, she said, "Why did you do that?"
Yeah, they're pretty honest, right?
We were like, "Why'd you do?" Because I didn't like the phone, and then I decided later maybe I, was being too abrupt, and I shouldn't have left it on. It was like, "Why did you do that?" I'm all panicked, but they did take me back and unlock the gate, and I was able to.
Wow, you're lucky. You were lucky.
Very, very, very. Well, I'm such a sweet talker.
This has been Jeff Stearns, Connected Through Cars.